Are we good?
Yes, your meeting's ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Just looking for a Chromebook.
I'm calling the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Dave, Ross, can we get a Chromebook down here? Hey, Dave, can we get a Chromebook down here? We got it.
Are we? Oh boy. The New Jersey Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting the interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the board secretary has caused notice of this meeting, including date, time, and location, to be posted in South Brunswick Public Library and the board office, filed with the township clerk, and communicated to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger. Roll call, Mr. Plowski, please.
Mr. Roger Krishna. Mr. Ray Keener.
Here.
Mrs. Joyce Mehta. Here. Mr. Mike Mitchell. Dr. Stephen Parker.
Here.
Dr. Smith Raj.
Here.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Here.
Mr. Joseph Scaletti.
Here.
Mr. Barry Nathanson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The approval of tonight's agenda, can I get a motion, please? Moved by Dr. Parker, I have a second.
Second by Mr. Keener.
Second by Mr. Keener, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First of all, for the people at home and here, I apologize for my voice. It actually sounds worse than I feel. So, my wife tried to keep me home, but I told her in 19 years, the only time I missed a board meeting is when I had open heart surgery. So I'm here, guys. So moving along, review of the minutes, board minutes of September 9th, 2021, executive minutes of September 9th, 2021, board minutes of September 23rd, 2021, and executive minutes of September 23rd, 2021. Got a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Mrs. Rogers, so I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Meadow, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving along to the report of student representative. Victoria.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For our meeting for today, we'll be starting off with our last home football game. Homecoming was held on Thursday, October 7th. Students were nominated by the staff based and demonstrating our core values. The core members were Victoria Cohen, Riley Jarvis, Brian Rawls, Joseph Sakina, Jesse Boki, Dan Kwa, Ashika Parki, Kritika Nagaba, Omar Abdelaziz, Anika Tukur, Ishan Patel, Armand Kazi, Jason Thimba, and Sarah Kaziba O'Reilly. The winners were Omar Abdelaziz and Riley Jarvis, crowned as King and Queen. South Brunswick wants to help stomp out bullying. The What's Your Mask Be the Change Committee, in conjunction with the SB Helping Hands Club at SBHS, they are co-sponsoring a district-wide Stomp Out Bullying Day on October 20th. They're asking the entire district to wear the blue on the day in recognition of the World Bullying Prevention Month. Now, moving on to athletics, the home games this upcoming week. October 19th is tennis versus Monroe. October 20th, field hockey versus EB. Boys soccer versus Old Bridge, tennis versus JPS. October 21st, the girls soccer versus Old Bridge. October 22nd, girls cross country versus Edison. And October 23rd, football versus Monroe at 6, and the only tickets holders are permitted to be attended. The winter sports forms for the physicals can be only dropped off outside the athletic training office, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. High school winter sports will start at December 3rd. Please complete the sports interest forms on Genesis. Visit the Athletic Tab on South Brunswick High School website to get the information, the physical information to visit the team websites. That's all I have for you folks today. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Moving along to Superintendent of Schools, Scott Fetter.
I apologize. I will be a little bit longer than Victoria. Sorry, Victoria. Sorry. I'm going to start us off with something tonight. We have a visitor. We have a series of visitors in the audience tonight that I'm going to acknowledge right off the bat. Tonight on your agenda, you're being asked to approve our next athletic director for South Brunswick School District. And his name is C.J. Hendricks. This would be like the... Very nice. Very nice. And, CJ is just an amazing guy. He has his own little fan club, as you can see. And I'm on it, so I didn't bring a fat head for you. Is that correct, a fat head? Is that the right term? Yeah. But I'd be glad to hold one for you, okay? We got grandma, we got mom. Anyone else, CJ? Did you? You got uncle. Squad's over here, okay. All right. And we're thrilled to be presenting CJ for your approval tonight. A huge talent, a coach, an amazing teacher, a motivator, an influencer, someone that is going to, he's got big shoes to fill, giant shoes to fill, and CJ acknowledges that probably more than anybody. But glad he could be on the agenda tonight, glad he brought his squad, both family squad, school squad. You got Jake Rodriguez in the audience over there. We got Pete. Back, I can't see who, I'm not sure. All right, there we go. So again, nice to have everybody, but I'm going to go ahead and start my report now, CJ, is that okay? All right, thank you. So as you know from following along, we had to shut down a portion of Crossroads North. This was due to continued rising cases for a period of about 10 days. And while we thought it was settling, it just came back, and in the best interest of our students and staff, we did make that decision. Today was our first day. We're going to keep it shut down for a week. As long as we see things are going forward, we're going to bring them back next Thursday, so a week from today. And while that was not a move we did lightly or wanted to do, this is what we live right now. This is where we are right now. This is the pandemic. We're still in it. We're still feeling it. And I thank our teachers in that grade specifically for a quick move to virtual learning today, and our kids, and of course our families who had to change major schedules, I'm sure, to manage having their kids home when that wasn't the expectation. So again, fortunately we live in a great community with great staff, great families, great kids, that we can make these moves and do them well without a loss of learning. So that was really good. I want to talk to you, to the board specifically, and in the audience you might see a different kind of board meeting today. This is our first attempt, so we are asking for leniency and patience as we go through a change where our first board meeting of the month will act more as a work session. So we're going to be more going through the agenda and having some different conversations than might have normally had. We're going to go through this. We're going to try it. We're going to try it today's meeting. We're going to try it again in the November meeting and again the December meeting. So hopefully after 3 tries, we'll do well, and we'll feel like we have a very functional work session model. So that's coming down the pike starting tonight. Another big part of tonight, just so you know, are board goals as well as district goals. So Jen is going to take lead on that, and we'll be sharing that on the big screen. So you've received all that information. This is a result of our board retreat that happened last week. Thank the board members. It was a long night. I think we were there until around 10 or after 10. So about a 4-hour event. Really productive. And I think some really good strides were made in making the board really understand how it can be a more transparent board to the public, as well as continue down the good path that we've already been on with goals and such. So that's going to all start. That's tonight. Now, some really good news to share. And let me tell you, my days are not always filled with good news to share, so I'm very excited to share this. As I think I've shared over the years with you, I really don't care about lists when we get ranked, except when we get ranked high. Then I like the lists. If we don't get ranked on the list, I don't care about the list. If we get ranked low on the list, I think it's a bad list. That's my approach to lists. Good news is I can share good things usually because we're usually ranked pretty high on a list. In this particular case, we have 8 of our schools are ranked on the U.S. News Best Schools list. That's pretty good. So much so that one of our schools was ranked top 10 in the state. That was Monmouth Junction. Google Monmouth Junction. Woo woo. And it's a real testament to the work of this district to have 8 schools recognized for their performance, just overall being an amazing place for kids to be. So kudos to our staff in all of our buildings, and it's great information to share. So I really like that U.S. News list this year. I don't know if I'll like it as much next year. Next year it might not even be a smart list. This year it's clearly a very smart, well-done list. I don't know if that'll be the case next year. I'll let you know when I see the list, if we're on it, how good the list is. So just another thing that's going on right now, and I share this with the board, and the public can hear this, so I've said it, I think, as well. This is a hard year. I would go as far as saying that this is a harder year than last year. Teachers in the audience? Yeah? CJ, you just keep saying everything's wonderful. Everything's wonderful, piece of cake, all good, right? But you guys can say whatever you need to say, so it's fine. But it really is. And, we knew we were coming into a year, but I know for me, I'll speak on my behalf, I thought it was going to be a rebound, like a chance to bounce. And we're bouncing, but we're not bouncing always in the right direction. It is very challenging to work in an environment where the rules we have to manage are often illogical, overstated, and just very challenging to be a school in this way. But every day our people come in, all walks of education life, our students, our families. It's amazing. But I will say, and I want to share this, what we're dealing with this year, and while it might be expected, I'm not sure it's expected to this degree, is we have a lot of students that weren't in the school for 18 months. And in the elementary grades, you have kids that have never had a full year of school who are now in 2nd grade. And it's different. I think that our kids not forgot, but fell into habits when you're isolated for 18 months. And even if you weren't isolated, it still wasn't the same as a school function. And being with a mask on, it gives you different liberties. It's a challenge, and I will say, we're currently working on looking at our things. Our HIB numbers are up. Our upset parents are up. Our teachers that are, just struggling are up, except for these guys in the audience. These guys are great. Everybody else. But it's tough. It is tough. And, years ago, I think it was around 2000, maybe 2005, 2006, I remember when they came out, I was a principal at the time, and they came out with a rule that said that school districts can no longer provide any form of food, or really anything that would be considered a gratuity. I hate the term in our profession, but a gratuity of any kind cannot be purchased with taxpayer money. Which means if you just see someone having a hard day, and your school's had a hard day, in the past we could buy bagels. I'm not talking about steak, bagels, a cup of coffee. We are not allowed to buy staff a cup of coffee. It is debilitating. And I got to tell you, sometimes a slice of pizza or a bagel just make a difference. And what happens is our administrators shell out as much as they can shell out before it becomes, overwhelming for them individually. And so we had an idea. And I want to run this idea past you because we wrote a letter. And what we know about this community and our local businesses is they love to be part of the school district in some way. They haven't had the opportunities they normally have to invest in the schools. They really haven't. Things that they normally get to donate or volunteer for have just not happened. So we want to try and do a bunch of things at once. And that is we want to bring our partnerships back. And I'm being honest, I want to be able to provide our staff with that cup of coffee. I mean, McDonald's right now, I don't know if you guys did it. I'm 3 in a row now. I get my bacon and egg biscuit, no cheese. a hash brown and a cup of tea, not coffee, and it's free this week for anyone with a badge. That's awesome. That's awesome that McDonald's did that. Last month, Wawa, free hot drink for anybody who wanted it with a badge. So I think we have a community that would love to participate. So we're going to reach out to them and ask them what they might want to do to show our amazing staff some appreciation in ways we can't. I can write thank you letters, I can write love letters, I can do all kinds of things, but honestly, I'm not complaining about my salary, but I cannot afford to buy 1,300 people a cup of coffee every day. And if I had it, I would. But I believe we have a community that would want to help. So we drafted a letter that we want to send out and see if our partners in our community are interested in partnering to help out in any way they can. And we don't know what will come of it, but we're really excited to open up those partnerships again and as well offer our amazing staff opportunities for just a little sunshine on days, and there's some days where we need some sunshine. So anyway, I'll ask the board, is there any objections to that kind of thinking? Because that's something we were thinking of doing, but we want to talk tonight and see if that sounded like something you'd be okay with.
So that was in line with what you wrote to the Ed Foundation?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I actually shared the letter with them as well.
Okay.
They are offering to do something as well.
Okay. Thank you.
No objections?
Sounds good.
All right, well, thank you, guys. Any objections from the teacher audience? CJ, you don't like this? CJ said no? Bad idea? No, not yet, CJ. Just sit down for a little bit.
Public comment.
Just stay down, stay down. He's very aggressive, CJ. You have to understand.
My kids are really excited that we're going to YouTube tonight, so we're going to get them before they go to bed.
All right, we'll work on that. All right, well, I might be able to wheedle that into my little speech here, okay? Next on my list is I wanted to be able to add an opportunity if anyone who's currently on the agenda to be voted upon had anything to say. Yes, CJ. Come up to the mic, come on.
You're not following the agenda?
I'm not following the agenda. I violated protocol.
I appreciate it.
Need to make a
I'm
motion?
going to make sure it's
Motion
clear.
to violate protocol.
Oh, thank you. First and foremost, thank you, and I wanted to take this time to thank my family who is watching and is here today, both my family by blood and my family by otherwise who are here. I want to thank my wife, Christina, and my children, Jaden and Elena, for being such a great support system for me throughout this whole process. I don't do what I'm able to do without the support of them. I want to thank the Board of Education for accepting the recommendation from Superintendent Fetter. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. I'm humbled by this opportunity, to be honest with you, and I'm excited for the challenge that's ahead of me. I want to take some time to thank some really important people in our athletic program, our support staff, Kim Ron and Kathy Ahern, who really are the heartbeat that make our athletic program tick from day to day. Our coaches, our student athletes, our custodial staff, our grounds crews. Those are just the amazing people that really make sure our athletic department is what it is. And I want to thank, our South Brunswick community for all the support they give to our athletic programs and will continue to give throughout my tenure. I want to make sure that I acknowledge and congratulate probably one of the most important people throughout this process for me, which is Miss Elaine Mcgrath. She has been such an advocate for so many throughout her tenure as an athletic director. The things that she's done for our athletic program to take it to the next level has been absolutely amazing and inspiring to see. I look at her as a mentor, as a resource for guidance, but also, most importantly, as a great friend. She's really put her arm around me throughout the time that I came in here as a wet behind the ears coach many years ago. And so I appreciate all that she's given me, and I just want to give her flowers for all the work that she's done for our school community, our district, as well as advocacy throughout the state of New Jersey when it comes to athletics. But thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm excited to get to work. So thank you again, and go Vikings.
That does segue me into two mid-year retirements we have. You just heard from CJ. One is Elaine Mcgrath, which is why we have the opening. A huge loss to our district. Great that we are able to fill it with a powerhouse like CJ, but it's a huge loss, and she'll be missed. And I also want to announce that you're also being asked to approve Dr. Mary Beth Edmonds' retirement, also mid-year. Someone who's been in the district for 30 years, been in many different positions, currently as the principal of Monmouth Junction School. So we wish them both well, and I just wanted to acknowledge them mid-years. I want to make one other person I want to talk about that's on the agenda, and that is Jamie Bomer. Jamie Bomer is currently an assistant principal. But with what's going on with COVID and all the challenges we're facing, we're moving her, or asking you to accept our movement of her to be what's called an assistant principal on assignment. And the assignment is basically director of special projects. The special project is, of course, COVID. It is a special project. And already she has made a massive impact in our ability to manage the flow of information. We have testing starting for unvaccinated staff next week. And Jamie's been integral, working with our nurses, working with central office. Huge partnership, and we welcome her in the new position she's already stepped right in for. So that's great. And to segue into that, we still have so many positions open. We need people to work. We need bus drivers, paras, lunch aides, substitutes. Pretty much all around, we need people. And it's definitely hard. Staffing and transportation are our two biggest challenges on the day, and I say the third are probably student behavior. And that's probably rare to say student behavior in South Brunswick. Usually student behavior is not that high a level of problem, but right now it is. And I know Jen is working with some people in the district on the communication that we'll be sending out to the community. It's just again, it's kids who are readjusting, and it's a month in and they're still adjusting. And I think staff and I think parents are readjusting. I mean, really, we have parents that are the anger of parents is way up. And I don't think we've done anything to invoke that level of anger, but it's there. And I feel bad when parents are feeling that way. Kids, it's just a struggle, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but the thing that keeps me going every day is this faculty. It's truly an amazing group of people at every position. So we're fortunate, and we will get through this, and we will get through it with flying colors. But we do want to let everyone know that it is a challenge each day as we continue to adjust. And I feel for our kids who are just rebalancing themselves. But they'll get into it, and it'll continuously improve. That I don't worry about. So let me see if I missed anything. Oh, yeah, just a couple of real quick announcements. This is Dyslexia Awareness Month. If I didn't say that, Jody Mahoney would probably be very angry with me. And there'll be some things happening with that. Tomorrow, educators who are watching, remember, wear red. I think Murph, Kim, and Jen are both going to remind me to wear red tomorrow. David, wear red tomorrow.
Will do.
Okay. And that's tomorrow. It's also School Violence Awareness Week is next week, and similar to a week of respect. So we are still in full operation doing all the things we do. It's a little bit different, but we're still doing it. And again, sorry it was so long today, but welcome, CJ. And thanks for coming out. Thanks for the squad coming and the family and everybody else. And at that moment, I think that's going to be it for me.
We also have retired coach Joe Doherty here, so I'm going to give him his kudos. Moving along, and thank you, CJ. We know you're going to do a great job. So, moving along, like Scott said, that this is going to be our workshop meeting. So moving along, there's a presentation regarding district goals and board goals from Scott and Jen. So.
I'll go there. You want to stay there? Yeah, you're going to stay there. All right. Yeah. Go ahead, start it up.
Okay. All right, so Scott just mentioned a couple things I took away is it's not a normal year again, and we're trying to keep some things as normal as we can, but we're recognizing that's not so simple. And one of the pieces of something that we do every single year is we establish district goals, and so we stem them from our vision and our mission, and this is a slide that you see every year from us. Attached to the mission and vision are our district core values, and of them it's equity, partnerships, and innovation. It was nice to hear tonight some new partnerships that we might be trying to reestablish. And equity has always been a focus for us, and you're going to see in one of our goals, Scott's going to share some really exciting next steps for us there. This is a reminder, like we said, it's hopes versus dreams versus reality, and it's still that way. And we really want to be able to focus on what's on the left-hand side of the screen, but we really recognize that there's this whole piece of COVID, and it's still very strong of the things that we need to address. And we want to assure safety along with following COVID protocols, as well as for our staffing needs. I know transportation has been an issue we've been talking about, we'll continue to talk about. So there's a lot of things happening. The left-hand side makes me happy, and it's the exciting work that we're trying to do, but we recognize the reality of all of it. With that said, there are 3 goals that we have as a district this year. The first one has been the same, and it will continue to be the same in the sense that our vision is to create and implement a strategic plan that we follow over multi-years, knowing and recognizing that we're growing in it, improving in it, and addressing key pieces from a stakeholder group that was established when we created our strategic plan. This year is supposed to be the sunset of this strategic plan, and we really should be in the process right now creating a new. But we took a page from the book here and said that we need to press pause on that. There's aspects of this strategic plan due to COVID that we really didn't get to attack the way we wanted to. So we are adding 1 more year to this strategic plan. I know it's hard to see as board here, and I know you've already seen this. This is a slide we've used each time we present our district goals. And for our families at home, as you see this, and we'll have it up on the website, it's there now, you can kind of zoom in, but it really categorizes all of our aspects of the strategic plan, and it lets you know just over the years what we're working on and what's been happening. Same idea with a different look. The colors in green are aspects of our strategic plan that we're maintaining, that we've addressed and we're maintaining. The ones that are in blue are ones that we're still continuing to progress and grow. And I point out the 3rd one down, social and emotional learning. We were chugging along, and due to this pandemic and everything that, Scott, you were just talking about, we know where our focus needs to be. So instead of maintaining, we changed that to continuing progress. And I'll show you in the next slide some of the ways we're addressing SEL. You can see if it's in that orangey color, it's on pause. And there have been some things due to the pandemic, such as the before and after school safety and monitoring. It's shifted. We're not using in-house programs anymore, as well as redistricting and refiguring grade levels. It's nothing that we've had to address at this moment. So those pieces are on pause. Again, we have different buckets, as I like to call them, or umbrellas in our strategic plan, and it's under wellness, academic programs, community, student supports, and growth. So this is this year's aspects of the strategic plan that we're able to focus on. There's visible work that you're going to see as a family, as a student, as a staff member, and it is in the area of SEL. We are really focusing on some adult wellness. If we can make sure we're okay, then we can help our kids be okay. It's that whole idea Scott's talked about on the airplane, putting the mask on yourself first. So we're really trying to give our staff the supports they need, along with our students. We just purchased a universal screener with ESSER money so that we can help identify and support students programmatically of what they need, when they need, and be able to identify it at younger ages. And that whole work on this trauma that we're experiencing. Other areas of visible work are career academies. And I've been updating the board in that progress, and I'll have more to report out on that, but we're in the stage of readying for a launch of September 2022. And you know, when you think of it, you might think of like we're gonna have a whole new building, and I'm not saying that, but we're gonna have a whole new program that kind of aligns and lets kids be part of a cohort of an area of interest. And we're focusing in the area of computer science to start, and we're going to learn from that. Pete Varela is here in the audience, and he's a part of that team and has been a great support. And so we're looking to we've taken our time so we can do it well. And so more to come on that. intervention work, we're using ESSER dollars, so that's that COVID relief money, to support all the intervention work. We are planning to have work happening at the elementary, middle, and high school level. We've hired personnel to do this with ESSER monies. Implementation, we're continuing with personalized learning and our device initiative. Those are things that were put into place last year and we're continuing. And then behind the scenes, one of our strategic plan goals was around this family university. And I have it listed there as behind the scenes because we're doing aspects of it. We're working at making our parent academies, that 2.0, better. We learned about virtual parent academies, and they've been quite successful. So there's some behind the scenes things happening there, but that's one of the ones that we hope as we get through this pandemic, we can put a higher focus. I'm going to turn it to Scott for goal number 2.
All right, I'm just going to pull this down. So, yeah, I want to get up, and I actually still can't see that whole. We just have to remember to move these out further when we're going to. Yeah, oh, that's perfect. Thank you. So the equity goal is something where we're really taking a leap this year. We've talked about things before. However, we really need to build a solid metric system, I say metric system, but a metric system of metrics, I should say, where we can know and determine long after I'm gone, this board's gone, that would stay with the district, to when we know that the work we're doing in equity is working. Like, when do you really know it's working? What does that look like? So that's hard. And the reason we know it's hard is systems all around the country work on this, and no one has the answer. I'm not saying we have the answer, but I believe we could build a model that would tell us when we are doing the right work, when the right work is having an impact in our goals towards all of our students really making strides. So to read it, we're looking at the benchmarks, key benchmarks that tell us when this benchmark moves, that's a really, really important thing. Not just when one number moves, but what are those key benchmarks? Now, say, this sounds easy, Scott. Just say when there's more, when a higher SAT scores, then you're good. Well, that's not it. That really isn't it. But what we have is the term that we use a lot. It's called disproportionality. Disproportionality is a term used to describe when there's too many of one in a larger group, whatever that is. So if you had, let's say, 20 apples, and you're looking at different types of apples, and half of your apples are Macoun and half your apples are Red Delicious, let's say. That's how many apples you have. And then you look over here and you see, well, how many apples are being eaten? And then you see that, well, almost all the apples being eaten are Red Delicious apples. That would be weird if we believe that both Macoun and Red Delicious are equal. Why would they be eating in such a higher proportionality of Red Delicious over Macoun? Now, we need to take that thinking and apply that across the board in all areas. We were talking, I think it was yesterday, I don't know, the days kind of meld together, about ESL, ELL, English as Second Language learners, and how we would know, when things are working, right? And you could say, well, when kids in third grade come out, like how many kids come out of ELL, you want that number to keep rising every year. Well, that could be a completely irrelevant number. But imagine if we can say that we can determine how long it should take a kindergartner who comes into kindergarten with a language level of 1.5. And then we say we can determine through study how much time that child should take before they can test out of needing English as a second language services anymore. And then we look and say, well, what about kindergartners that come in at a level 3? How long should that take? We're talking about digging in so deep to metrics, and that's why Smith Araj is going to help me. She's been recruited already. She doesn't know she's been, well, she knows she's been recruited, but I don't know that she fully volunteered. It's kind of a voluntold thing, Smith. So what it really means is we have to determine what are those factors and what are those benchmarks that really say, hey, the work you're doing is meaningful. it's working. Not just, hey, we did this event and that event was great, but it didn't move the needle. Well, you have to know where the needle is to know if it moves, right? So basically, that's what that goal says. And it's very complicated, so this might help a little bit. What we'll do is we will assess the proportionality of enrollment across district programs. So you break apart all of our different programs and see what it looks like. In other words, if we have 10% of our kids are green, then you should see 10% of your kids, 10% of green kids should represent 10% across most of your areas. It's kind of obvious, but not really. It's not that simple. I wish it was that simple, then my work would be easy. It's really adding the variables that interchange with that and interact to see if that proportionality makes sense or not. So the goal this year is simply to determine the benchmarks, not present on all of that. It's to determine. It's a tremendous amount of work to do this. So we'll assess the proportionality. We will compare, a very important part of this, compare how South Brunswick looks compared to other like districts. Not to other districts in general, but people that have similar demography to us. What do their numbers look like? That could be challenging to get, but that's one of our goals, is to compare with everything we can. And then based upon all that, develop a plan of growth in those specific benchmark areas. It almost becomes its own little strategic plan with 3 to 5 years of actionable steps with measurable metrics to really see, is all of the things we've been doing, is it having the global impact or not? Or do we just feel good about it, but it's not having the impact? Because I know I have one person on our team that talks about that the feel alone isn't enough. We can't just go home and pat ourselves on the back and not look at the real metrics involved. So that's the goal. We're excited about this. You know, we're gonna really put our heads to this. And very challenging, but I'm excited to present to you at the end of the year. And keep you abreast as the year goes on. So I'll do this one. Health and safety, I mean, obviously, kind of doing anything without health and safety right now really doesn't make any sense. It's kind of expanding from our goal from last year. Looking at our emergency procedures, like we still have to do that, right? We forget that, but we still have emergency procedures. We still have to do those things. And we have James Conroy, who gets involved with all this. He's a gentleman you see when you come in every day, scanning you when he comes in. This will work towards addressing large-scale reunification training. That's a big part of what do we do in the case where that's needed. Let's hope we never need to do it, but you want to be prepared for it in the off chance we ever do need it. And then, of course, COVID, because how can you have any talk without COVID these days? So much going on with that. It is dominating our universe, which you know. A lot is going on. Again, I shared with you about Jamie. So our team now are 2 COVID Central nurses, Jamie Bomer, James Conroy, Rafael Morales, Amy Finkelstein, myself, Kim, Jen, David. It's all encompassing. And but the good news is we're going to keep kids safe. We're going to keep our staff safe and hopefully keep the community safe. And that's basically what that says up there, but that's kind of the gist of it. So, yeah.
Remind ourselves of our mission, and in advance you all have seen this. This was from our conversation. We are proposing, you all are proposing 2 board goals for yourselves, and I don't know, is there a discussion?
Well, I mean, let's make sure.
Did we capture it?
Yeah, give them a capture. The first goal is revolves around our committee reporting. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that we built a structure. It always needs a little tweaking. We did a little tweaking, but we want to make sure we continuously work through committee in this district. It's not a board of a whole, so we have committees for various things, and those committees meeting, hammering out some of the bigger picture items in committee first before it comes to the board, and how that works. So that's kind of your first goal, is to work on that. And the second goal, Jen, just move your head back, Jen. Board will work side by side with administration, develop a plan that addresses transportation challenges. So basically, I can only talk about transportation so often. It gives me hives. We need to address the obvious issues in the room, and that is that we have a significant national problem that we are facing. It is a big deal, and it needs to be addressed. So we're going to talk to you about, in our new work session model, we're going to spend a little time on this as old business, so we can do a little bit more sharing. But basically, the board is basically identifying it needs to address this. We can't be in a situation where our kids cannot get to school. We also cannot be in a situation where the cost of transportation forces us to divert funds from teaching and learning. And we are going down that hill right now, along with the rest of the school districts, if we don't act. So the board has taken the bold step of making it one of their goals to work on this. So yes, Jen, what we'll do now is we'll have an opportunity for discussion about this particular, whether the board goals or the district goals, and have the board have an opportunity to share thoughts on that now.
If everybody else come back, and then we can have the discussion.
While you're doing that, while you're walking up there, just for a transition, I'm not going to sing or dance, but I will share that one thing that came out of a retreat the other night was, and it's not a board goal, but it is a board goal, but it's too small to be a board goal, is the setup isn't working, especially as we move towards a more exchange of information and sharing at the work session meetings. So just sharing with the board, while it's not one of the goals, it kind of is we're going to work on this and see what's possible. But if you look at this space, we got issues. That's still issues up there, because then you're still dealing with your screen. It's a challenge. This is a challenging room to do, where board members can look at each other when they talk, which is very important in discussion. This is, I mean, obviously the up top is new because of COVID, but we have to do something else with this. So just know while it's not a goal, I know it was a goal you asked for, and know that we are on top of that. So I'll turn it over to you, Barry. If you want to open discussion, I'll stand up here for now.
Yeah, start. Anybody on the right have any comments or questions? Okay, go ahead,
Jen.
Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you. Jen, your piece that you showed first, I think it was COVID trauma, the COVID-19 post-trauma.
Sure.
Just as an FYI, I know at the county level, they're putting together a post-COVID trauma group.
Okay.
So you just as an FYI,
Thank you.
I have a contact for you. You might want to reach out to
Sure,
them.
send me the contact, thank you.
Okay.
We have it, and just to share, we have a district team, and so they're awesome, and so I can share that name.
Okay.
They might already be connected, so.
And they
but
may
I
not have that much
appreciate it.
information.
Yep,
but
thank you.
I'll pass it on to you. Thank you.
On the right. Anybody on the left?
I assume that means that the goals are good.
Yeah.
We're good.
All right, I'll come sit down.
Thank you. Go sit back down. So, in our new format, the first public comment section is on agenda items only. So, the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Complete copies of this rules that govern the portion of the meeting are available to the public at the back of the room, or you can obtain an advance copy by contacting the board office during regular business hours. We reserve the right to limit each speaker to no more than 3 minutes. It is our plan to listen to each member of the public. We will note all questions and comments made. Once all questions and comments from all members of the public are made, the Board of Education will respond, if necessary, to questions or comments in the most timely and efficient manner available. Please consider not repeating comments and questions made by other members of the public. I ask that you state your name, place of residence, or your group affiliation. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak on agenda items? Seeing no hands, I'll close the public portion. Moving along, again, in our we're going to review our agenda, and we're going to do an agenda walkthrough.
Can I model this for us?
Yes, please.
All right.
Because I have no idea.
So we're going to work on this together. And what we're going to do is, if you open up your consent agenda, you'll see at the top, it's the one that says approval of consent agenda, October 14th. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a walkthrough of the agenda. When we get to a section, if someone has a question about something from that they had prepared for tonight, or that comes up as we're going through it, go ahead and share, raise your hand, or however you want to let us know you want to say something, and we'll go through it. As you know, a lot of the agenda is pro forma, but of course there are items that might not be as obvious, or things that you want to share more about. So we'll start quickly with our business of the board, which is Bill's list. Now, Bill's list, obviously it's something that you would have had to already gone through. Right now it just says this. Any questions on a Bill's list? So we're going to go real fast like this, so don't worry. Approve lease purchase process. So this is your 1.2. Then you have recording of awarding bids. So this whole section is really the business side, the David world, and it's all the different things that come out that we need to do to operate the district. Things like when we get a bid project, because it reaches a bid threshold, we have to go through a process. We have to accept bids. We have to reject bids. It's a process. It all happens publicly like this. And that's what this whole section becomes. You're looking at 1.6, approval of transportation routes.
We skipped a couple.
Sorry, I just kept moving along. 1.3, that I talked before about recording and awarding bids. You can see here, you're looking at various athletic runs, this is athletic supplies and clothing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
1.2, Mr. Feder?
Yeah, it's lease purchases. So again, if you have questions you have a question about that one, or you just want me to go that slowly?
No, I thought you skipped it, but I did have a little question about this balloon payment program. Just the question how that affects, because you need to acquire these new buses, and I just wanted to know the balloon payment program, how this affects you acquiring the new buses. What's the...
So the way this process works is we are in a 5-year lease purchase process or lease purchase program. 5 years ago, when I got on board, we lease purchased 6 buses. Those 6 buses are going to be up for to be turned back in, and we're going to get 6 new ones and a couple more. The balloon process, what happens is those 6 buses that we purchased, they will be sold and to the highest bidder. And anything that comes into the district with regards to the sale goes towards the balloon payment, and anything left over above the balloon payment goes to our principal of our new purchase. That's how the program works. We've always sold our buses for more than the balloon payment, and we've always taken a little bit of money and dumped them back into the next round of leases.
Thank you.
This is also part of a movement to move the district to be more in-house busing. Right now we have contracted routes, and we have routes that we have our own drivers. This move also allows us to increase our own drivers while decreasing contracted routes.
Thank you. So just a quick question. So with the acquisition of the new buses, is that something that goes out for bid?
No, that's all done through the Hunterdon County Educational Services. So they do the bids. They do all of
Okay.
that for us.
Thank you.
All right, so down below, you're looking at, again, pretty pro forma stuff with recording and awarding bids. This is for spring athletic supplies and clothing. So again, if there's no questions there, keep moving. 1.4, record and reject proposal received. And, say again?
I'd like to speak on 1.4.
Go ahead.
Just want to share to the board, this goes back to some conversation that we had as a group, and this is the RFP process that was put in place for us to look to bring on board a consultant in the area of social justice, our social studies curriculum, somebody in the area of culturally responsive teaching. We only received one submission. A committee met of stakeholders, including social studies supervisors, our director of equity and community engagement, board member, our chair of the, Lisa Rogers, chair of our curriculum committee, myself and Scott, along with Stephen Corso, our business department RFP person. I know he's got a different title, but he does all those great things in this area for us. That's my connection with him. And in that meeting, we know, even though just one, we reviewed it, we used a rubric that was a 3-point rubric in the area scored on credentials, presenter qualifications, versatility and depth of knowledge, and cost is a piece as well. You'll see that it's rejected due to the cost, but I can share with this group that the score on the rubric itself in the other areas was not perfect. We would have liked to have others to compare it to, but we didn't feel strongly that it was one that we would have considered to want to go with. From a business department sense, the cost was over $6,500 per day. It was exorbitant. And so for us, our next steps, this is finalized here. And for us, we don't have to RFP again. We are looking into bringing in and interviewing other consultants now. We have the green light to be able to seek out other professionals because we didn't have luck in this process. So we will keep the board abreast of that. Those folks that were at this meeting will be invited to those interviews, and I will keep you in the know as we move forward on that.
Thank you. Want to go on?
All right. 1.5 just talks about dual enrollment courses we do with Middlesex. So again, pretty pro forma just gives you the cost that we are agreeing to pay when we have those dual enrollment students. Okay. 1.6 is a parent. This happens, and I know people have asked about this before. We've offered a parent contract. Usually that happens because we cannot find a bus to do the route. In this case, this parent has agreed to transport their own child at the rate of $25 a day, which has a total cost of $4,000. So this is not something we look to do all the time, but there are times where this makes most sense for the parent as well as the child as well as the school district. This is one of those cases. So you'll see these from time to time on the agenda.
This is due to where the person lives that this happened?
More like where they're going.
Okay.
And the ability to get a bus to agree to do the route. We're out of drivers. Contracts could have come in at exorbitant amount of prices, making it cost impossible. Therefore, the next choice is to offer a parent contract.
So they're going to Monmouth Junction School, but they're not in the normal area to go to Monmouth Junction School? Is that what it is?
No.
Student was placed.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This student is from out of district. It's an in-district student displaced.
Yes, displaced student.
Students displaced, currently located out of the district and needs to be brought back to Monmouth Junction.
Gotcha.
So that's what happened here.
Okay, that makes sense.
But these could come for different things, out-of-district placements. It could come in various times. In this case, we're getting situations where we normally can find a solution.
Right.
And if we can't find a solution, the state has allowed us to say, well, then your program is virtual. That's currently allowed. And
Wow.
We definitely don't want that to happen, so we're going to any length to find a way to get kids to school.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Thank you.
So travel-related expenses and reimbursement. Jen, anything on here that's of excessive interest?
No, I think it's pretty explanatory.
Yeah. So again, you'll start to see a few more things. They are opening up again some workshops. I know Texpo, which is a big workshop every year, is going to be open this year. That's a January, I think late January workshop. So we'll probably have some people going to that as well. I plan on going to that one. I know that we have Sharon Johnson, our tech director, and some other people usually go to that one. That's coming up. Questions on travel? 1.8, approved statement of assurance regarding paraprofessional staff. Kim, anything on this? Pretty. Yep, just one of those pro forma type things. Health and safety evaluation of school buildings, checklist and statement of assurance. Another component that we are required to do. We take these things seriously, and we fill out all their forms, and we take that, and you have the backup there as well on that. Can I just mention that real quick? Go ahead,
So
Dave.
just everybody real quick on 1.9, the head custodian in every building goes through with a very specific checklist that's put out by the State of New Jersey Department of Education. And they provide us this checklist, which allows us to give the statement of assurance. It's also part of the comprehensive maintenance plan that you'll see next week or your next board agenda that you'll see that will provide all of the maintenance and budgets with regards to upkeep of the buildings. That's 1.9.
So 1.10, so what we do in May, about May usually, you approve vendors for different services. And then what happens is reality comes. So May is let's see how this goes, and then there's reality. Our reality right now, of course, with staffing is the big issue here. If you'll see, we are increasing these two vendors, the Bigger Picture and Salient Health, substantially. And for Salient Health, what they're doing is they're providing us nurse services because we're not unable to hire direct nurses. And the Bigger Picture is providing us with things such as RBTs, as well as behaviorists and other areas in special education. So what happens is, while there's an increase on this line, it's not new money. In other words, you're not approving to spend more money than was budgeted. It's just where the money's coming from. This might have been money spent out of staffing lines are now put into vendor payments. So it isn't new money, it's just a redistribution of existing funds due to the challenges we're facing. But I will say this happens even when we're not facing the staffing challenges. It's just something that sometimes happens. Some jobs are very hard to fill. Nursing is always challenging to fill. Behavior techs are very hard to fill. So it's a good partnership, and that's why you're seeing such a large jump, $80,000 increases in those lines. All right. Upon recommendation, again, this is another area, service for general education students. So you separate out certain things, general ed and regular ed. One thing on here I do want to point out is Lori Sorfman. Lori Sorfman retired, I think a couple years ago. And she has agreed to come back and support us in doing evaluations, which we had someone take a job, then rescind. And it really put us in a bind. And Lori stepped up. I think she's working 3 days a week, Kim? Do you know? I think it's 3 days. 3 days a week she's working, and awesome to have her. Again, it's not forever, but we're very psyched to have Lori back. So again, same kind of thing.
I have a question.
Yep.
On this area
Of professional services, considering the situation that we're in and trying to find individuals to do it, have we reached out for any type of shared services with other districts to see if they have others that would be able to work with us, instead of just looking at a particular individual or company, to see if there's a potential for shared services, reduced cost?
So basically what we talk about in our meetings is, do you have anybody we can steal? And the answer is absolutely not.
Okay.
We are not in shared mode right now.
We're not, right, okay.
We're in hunker down high that you have the person never let them leave
Yeah.
or see the light of day.
Okay.
That's kind of where we
Thank
are
you.
today. Yeah.
That's fine.
But in general, the idea of sharing is a good idea. And it just isn't something that at this moment in
Right
time is possible, but it's certainly something to consider as we go on.
Thank you.
Yeah. 1.12 is, so people just understand, there's public money and non-public money we get from the state. We have to give a certain amount of money. It's already predetermined how much they get. We have to report that. You have to go through this process of board meetings. So on this particular area, Norliman is using $64,000 of their $76,000 allotment for security. That's what they're using. SROs. They're hiring an SRO. We have no say in how they do this. As a board, you're simply approving this because the money is coming. We are a conduit of the money, even though we have nothing to do with their decisions. We're just acknowledging for you what's happening here. So they still have a balance of $12,000. But again, you're just approving that they're doing this. That's just the way it is. That's the nature of how this functions.
So this is state money coming to us?
Yes.
Correct.
So this is state money that comes through us to them. And then we are the public entity that makes sure it's happening.
So do all charters,
Into the mic.
do all charter schools and the other private schools get this sort of funding?
So in each school, in each district, it's determined that way. And in our district, David, I believe it's just 2 schools, correct, St. A's?
St. A's, Northern, and then the charter schools is a deduction from our state aid. So that's a payment that we make at the beginning of the year.
The private schools,
It's only 2 private.
private
Two
schools are
privates,
just 2.
but she also asked about charters.
And charter?
Yeah, she asked about
Oh,
charters.
I didn't hear
as well.
that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Charters are made a payment in the beginning of the year, right to the Department of Ed.
I think we have 3.
Thomas Edison, there's a new one that's a smaller school. It only has about 2 or 3 students, and then there's one other, I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah.
Raja,
Scott, does it depend on the number of students, or is there a percentage that has to be given, something like that?
so the state tells us how much they get, and it is determined by enrollment usually is a major factor. But we don't determine it. So the board doesn't choose the number. It's a number predetermined. When we get our money, and you might have remembered when Jen was sharing about the money that came in for ESSER and all of that.
Yeah.
When it says the district got $4 million, it got $4 million, but a portion of that $4 million goes to the non-public schools identified in the district, in this case, Norleman and St. A's. So that's predetermined for us, not by us.
And is there any reporting back system of how that is getting used?
Pretty much what you're doing now. So this is the way it's documented that this money went to them. It documents how they're using it. And then they have certain things they need to do as well as we report back at the end. It's kind of a cycle.
So at some point of time, we'll see the details.
At some point,
At some point of time, we will see those details, how it is getting spent.
if they choose to spend it all, yes.
Okay,
There's been times where that hasn't happened. But yes,
thank you.
you got it. All right.
That's it, right?
That's that. And then the personnel section is different. So I just want to say about personnel, just keep in mind, anything we talk about personnel is not about an individual. So when we go through this, if you have questions about something personnel, unless we're in executive session and we predetermined there was going to be a conversation about a specific individual, the conversation now in this public
Global.
is more global in nature. For example, I believe Lisa has a question that falls under that category. So Lisa, do you want to ask that question so that we can just do a model real quick of the kind of question that works?
Sure. So on the backup that Kim submits on page 13 of 17, there's a section called mentors, and I was unfamiliar with that, and I was wondering if Ms. Kim could help explain what a mentor is.
So probably Jen's going to grab that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's somewhat, has to do with the training of mentors, so that's why I can speak to it. And so
I didn't hear you. What mentors?
What's that?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, the training of mentors, so that's what this has to do with, as well as their payment for working with teachers. So this is a yearly approval, and it was really smart of Kim to kind of hold off on this approval till now because there's been so many new hires. So this is for the entire school year, and you'll see that there are different rates. We have different kinds of mentors. If we're talking about a provisional, like first year normal, I'm saying normal, it's probably not the right word to use, but just that traditional provisional teacher, that's a payment of $550 for the mentor to mentor that new teacher. If it's an alternate route, meaning they don't have the same kind of educational background, it's a little more intense. This is all described from the state of what we pay. This is $1,100 that kind of mentoring, and there's actually one on there, you'll notice.
I saw that.
The other payments are something that we have established called building-based mentors, and that's where we have set up that every building has a trained teacher to be a mentor, and because building-based means you're new to the school but not new to teaching, so you don't need the same kind of level of intensity. So we have the ability for some teachers, if they just have 1 to 3, they earn a stipend of $300. If they have 4 to 6 teachers, they get a $500. So it's all established, that's how we approve it. The other adjustments are just prorated. You can see the dates are different, so they're not full school year.
Good. That's what I was wondering, because I saw some that were like 150, then 300.
Yeah, it's all
and they all have the same
prorated.
title, the provisional, but
Yeah.
wanted to be clear.
Yes,
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So in regard to this part of the agenda, I wasn't planning on going through each section. You can see how it's sectioned. Kim and her department do a pretty thorough job of explaining. There's always an explanation on the right-hand column as to why something is on the agenda, or it's very obvious if it doesn't have some explanation. But are there any questions about the document itself or a section of the document that we could handle for you?
No.
Dr. Parker?
And that means that in any of these situations, somebody that's resigning or retiring, somebody's on a leave of absence.
Can you speak into the mic, Dr. Parker? It's going to be hard for the public to hear.
Yes,
And
for
even
each
for
of
us.
these items, whether they're, somebody's resigning or retirement on a leave of absence, all the listed here, they all have to come to the board for approval, that we're aware these things are happening in the school.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Dr. Parker. I know you know the answer to that.
It's not really something that we can approve or disprove in most cases. I mean, this is really for our acknowledgement that this is happening with staff.
So again, what it is we are a public entity.
Right.
All money associated with the school district goes through the Board of Education.
Right.
We can't just have people hired that do not go through that. But yes, as much as there are many times where we like to deny the retirement of somebody, we don't get to say no to that.
Right.
Well, you can say no, but they get to do it anyway.
Right.
But yes, it's a way to catalog and capture all of the movements, the personnel movements in the district. Kim and her team do things such as there's a change in salary because now someone gets a different increment, or there's a change in salary because someone just got a new degree, or there's a change in salary because someone is going to be working an extra day, or there's a stipend because this person is working for 3 more hours than their contracted time. But all of that comes through the board and through the public, because all monies have to be accounted for in that way. So, and I know you knew that answer, but you wanted me to explain it, so I appreciate the opportunity, Dr. Parker. And that's kind of what goes on here. So all of the things, I think the last one you did was 71 pages, Kim?
Yeah.
The last one before this one? And she didn't cry at all. I mean, well, that one time, but not other than that, she really didn't cry. It was really impressive. But it's a significant amount of work.
Yeah.
She probably can use a few more people in her department to help out there, especially this year has been crazy. And, we go through that as a team as well, Dr. Parker. We do an agenda review before here, and sometimes we put Kim through the ringer, sometimes a little lighter, and we want to make sure it's all correct. I will say that as close to perfect as we are, there will be mistakes on occasion, and then Kim catches those and corrects them. You'll even see that sometimes on here, where there'll be a correction of some form. For the most part, it's things that must go through you. Well, for all things that must go through the board. And obviously, when it becomes a confidential matter, that also gets discussed in executive session, which you know. Otherwise, it is not really for discussion, outside of things like what we just asked and what Lisa asked before, which are really good questions for both the board and the community to understand and hear. So thank you.
Right, but that's very similar to item 1.1, which is the list of bills.
It is.
I mean, it's just because people need to be aware this is where it is. I mean,
It really is, Dr. Parker. Like David can't just decide to spend money that it does not get qualified somewhere and accounted for. It just can't happen.
no, but often those bills are because we've approved something in some other meeting.
Well, for example,
monies to be spent.
people don't start getting paid because the payroll system uses this document to then align that with, well, who gets paid. So, what, Dave?
And how much?
And how much. So it isn't, it's a way to track everything, because
Right.
we get audited through the roof every year.
Right,
And that
but
audit all has to match. And David yells at us if we try to do something that isn't exactly perfect. In other words, David yells a lot at us, but usually me, actually.
Right, but it's just for the public to be aware, because
is.
this is public money.
All public
They
funds.
get to see
Very transparent.
every penny that's spent and where it goes.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Actually, regarding that, the public money, can we just show where the section is for the board to review the can't think of the word right now, the operating budget, all the budget information? I know that it's in here, but can we just look
Well,
at it?
right, Lisa, right now we're doing the
But that's on
personnel
the
part of the agenda.
I understand, but should that be, the question I have is, should that be part of the consent agenda at the top to say where we are or where to look for financial information? Because even though the consent agenda is for bills list, And I understand why we're approving that, I get that. But should we have any information on where we are as a budget? That's the question I have. It's not necessarily we're approving that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a
it would not-
fuzzy
It wouldn't be
thing.
part of the board agenda.
Yeah,
It's not part of the board agenda. The
Okay.
finance committee might be interested in that.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the board agenda.
okay. I just wanted to.
Yeah, the money isn't kept, it's not, that'd be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking, is
Yeah.
there?
It's not like one number. It's not one number you'd look at and say, okay, now there's only $10,000 left.
Yeah.
It's far more complex than that.
Yeah,
No, but that's why we often see items for transfer. I mean,
All the
basically,
time.
my
You see the
understanding
transfer requests.
is the board budget must always be balanced.
right.
Correct.
You know,
Right.
your budget and what you're spending, so
Right.
Correct.
if one item's going over budget, you've got to pull money from another one.
For
because
example-
it all has to end up being balanced in the time when it goes to the audit, and they have to say.
Right, like where we're moving money to the vendors.
Right,
When David sees that those lines are short, he has to move money
Right.
from this line to this line to cover that uptick.
Right,
That
because
requires-
our budget is set when we approve it.
It's set back in February. Think of the logic. We're approving a budget in February for operations starting in July, which then really get hot in September. And then, of course, we're dealing with what we're dealing with, and all the numbers change.
Right.
So-
In a perfect world, when everybody actually stuck to their budget, it would be nice.
it would be what?
It would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
I think
And
that
we
was
wouldn't have to make all those
Wouldn't that be
transfers.
I plead the fifth, the meeting is
Yeah.
adjourned.
All right. And I'm not yelling. I'm not yelling. I'm just saying.
Making a
Would be
point.
I
nice.
promise he's not talking about me.
He's yelling.
Not yelling.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Parker. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, that actually concludes our first shot at a work session. So as you can see, this was quite different. It didn't really take that long. It gave us an opportunity to talk about the items, help educate the community as well, which is a nice little addition to this. And remember, as I wrote to you on Monday, normally this whole agenda will be approved next meeting. But remember what I said, we're going to go ahead and ask you to approve this whole agenda this week. And I shared why in the update. And November and December are the same. We'll do work sessions and then do that. Our next meeting, we might even have to operate something like this because we have to approve the whole agenda this time. But normally what we want to do is have these discussions now, and then that gives you time to then, before you have to vote, which would be next meeting. The only thing that you'll be voting upon each meeting are probably Kim's work and David's work. And we'll be showing you that and going through that and probably color coding or making it very clear to you what is for which meeting so that you can manage your time. Okay, so that's the first part of the change. Thank you guys for that. The next part is looking at old and new business. So old business, what we have on the agenda today is transportation. And unfortunately, I believe that's going to be an old business item for a very long time. The part I wanted to share and then open for discussion is we are currently still facing the same issues. And our director, Jill, is still amazing every day and making this happen and getting our kids to and from school and communicating when there's issues with that. But the other part I wanted to share was something we talked about before, and that is forming a committee to look at this, as well as looking at an older topic that was brought out about 8 months ago last year, which was high school start times. So we are putting together a committee, and you're going to get see a request for parents and students even, I think, that are interested in being on a committee to discuss this important topic. Our 4 board members who will be leading the way are Barry Nathanson, Ray Keener. Oh my God, look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's this whole side, this side. So it's Joyce, Barry, Ray, and Joe. And 2 big goals we're looking at. One, the major goal is we have to figure out to make sure we're solid and solvent in transportation for a long term. Right now, that's a very big concern to us. And the second concept is looking at whether or not any form of change in high school start times or any other start times, but mostly looking at a kind of a later start for high school, is feasible, possible, warranted, appropriate, and all of those components. So again, you'll be seeing something from the committee to express interest and a way to express that interest so that we can begin moving forward. The committee will probably meet about 4 times before February, when in February, any recommendations regarding transportation or start times will come to the board for a vote in February. That is an important deadline because in order for anything to happen with transportation, the board needs to approve the changes by then. I can't say this is going to be an easy process. I can't say it's going to be the most beloved process in the history of education, but we are talking about as felt a need as I've seen in education to address this crisis before this crisis completely addresses us and takes control. This is a need, and that's something that we are eager to tackle with our community, both internal as well as our families and community. Turn it over to the board. What discussion?
Dr. Parker, go ahead.
Anything being done on the county or state level to help address the transportation issue?
That's a great question. The state has told us some things. One of the things that they've shared with us is they've identified that there are currently, this was as of last week, 7,000 people on unemployment with CDL licenses. So they've said that. I'm not sure if that means they're going to do something that requires those people to apply for jobs or not, but they alluded to the fact that they were going to be addressing that 7,000 group as well. They've talked about a bunch of things, and I think there's a commitment to do something. It's probably a very challenging problem. One of the issues out there is to change the way in which you get a CDL. So they've talked about trying to speed up the process, but there are challenges that are federal in nature. The test itself is federally designed. Some states are looking at completely rocking that boat and doing something different. Pennsylvania is looking at a whole different process for bus drivers. The state is looking to help, but as of right now, there's been nothing concrete that I could share.
Okay. At one point, we talked about trying to get some sort of county training.
We did. That was a while back, too. That was my first year.
Well, I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
And it has, and that has not gone well. That has been rejected on many levels.
Okay.
So unfortunately, as of right now, we do not have that in place. And we had a commitment from our county leadership. I think Ray was with me at that meeting as a member of the North Brunswick Board of Education, as the director of transportation there. It was about 4 years ago, Ray. And it was at the ESCNJ. And we got together, and Mark Finkelstein, the superintendent of the ESCNJ, had reached out and tried to become a training site, and it was just thwarted by the state.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yep.
Anyone on the right? Any on the left? Just, I want to bring up a point since you brought up transportation. You got, it's become more complex because you got the private entities that we deal with in competition with us at the same time. So they're offering $25 an hour, for instance, and on their websites, you go onto their websites, they're offering complete, if you want a job as a bus driver, they'll help you get your CDL license and then employ you. So how do you compete against that? So that's where the problem is, I think.
All right.
Okay. So.
All right. Our next item would be new business. I kind of shared throughout the first part about our board retreat, where the board goals were discussed, the district goals were discussed, the function of the board and its process was discussed. I think that's where Smith got elected to help me with my my main goal. That's the meeting. She's like, oh, I knew I should have missed that meeting. And a lot was accomplished. I mean, that would be my take. My take, it was a good use of our time, something I'd like to do, we should probably do that at least twice a year and go through things and have heart-to-hearts and come up with what we're doing well, what we're not doing so well that we can make some improvements to. But I'll turn over to the board to discuss if there's anything they want to share about our process, about the meeting, or anything else that should be shared. Leave it up to you.
Anybody on the right?
Here.
Joyce? Oh, no.
No, you come back. Go to Joyce.
Okay, go to
Come
Joyce.
back.
That's
Joyce?
fine. That's fine.
You were pointing over there. Yeah, something? Go ahead.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. I agree with Scott that it should be done 2 times, maybe even 3 times a year, because it helps us to identify key issues, and more importantly, the board members have excellent ideas about resolutions and, how to overcome those issues, which is even more important. Just a small, tiny thing about board communications and comments. If there's any way for us to revisit that discussion, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just I'll comment on, let me just comment on that, so people know what they mean. So at the end of our board meetings, we usually have something called board comments. And at the board retreat, we discussed board comments themselves. And at that time, we did remove it from the agenda. That was when board members just kind of spoke. But I think what Joyce, you're saying is maybe reconsider that, is what I
just didn't feel that, it was so late in the day, I just didn't feel that we had enough time to just have a little discussion about it. To be honest, it came as a shock to me, and I just feel that, because it was the first time that I'd heard that there was ever a issue, and I'd just like the opportunity to be able to discuss it again with all the board members, if possible, whenever time permits.
Yep. Okay.
Lisa, go on.
Yeah, no, this is great. This provides a better structure, so there should be no questions as we go through the consent agenda, let me restate that. There should be no issues. As we're going through the consent agenda, it gives us the opportunity to really bring up any complete or key issues that we might have. The only recommendation I would make, if we can, is 2 things, actually. One is on the calendar. Would it be feasible to put a little W in parentheses on the board calendar so that we all know when it's a working session? The public gets to know that as well.
I'm sure Murph is watching and just heard you, so.
Go Murph.
Yeah.
And the other thing is relative to, it kind of dovetails off of Joyce, but it has to do with if we feel that there's something that needs to be addressed. It's not necessarily new business. We talked about that. So help us understand, if you don't mind, if we feel that there's something that needs to be brought up, what would you like to see as protocol?
Yeah, it's a great question. It does get a little tricky, but when it's the concept of old business or new business, that's probably a good time for us to put something in. And I think we talked about new business sticking to the agenda, but it really might need to be more broad than that, where it could be something that's a topic. So the process would be for the member to reach out to the board president and the superintendent, and so that can get placed on the agenda. What we talked about at the meeting was that right now, for example, would not be the time to bring up I want to talk about this topic.
Right.
And that way we can agendize it, and certainly if anyone from my team needs to be prepared to support, we want to be prepared to be able to do that. Otherwise, often what could happen is we'll say, we'll get back to you next week because we don't have it in front of us. It doesn't help the person looking for the information. So what we did suggest was to do that. So I think what you're saying is possibly broaden the way in which a topic is brought up, that it doesn't necessarily have to be, if it's an item for the district, that might be done. So we can revisit and maybe put some language to that as well. And as Joyce mentioned, revisiting board comment maybe with a different set of parameters or something. That might help, so that, there's something like that there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Parker.
Comment that, if it is a last minute
Bring the
thing,
mic, Dr. Parker.
can't reach it.
Got to move it.
If there is a last minute thing, there's always the possibility at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda.
Yes.
I mean, there's processes for that, and things could be added, provided it's important enough to be added. The second point is it was interesting to have the retreat with observers, visitors there. It's the first time we've had that. So.
Yeah. They sat and listened, and yeah.
But it is a public meeting, so.
It is a public meeting, always is. Yeah. Anyone else?
Anybody else?
Smith is scared to talk because she doesn't want to give her more work to do.
So Joyce and Lisa, so finishing up, Joyce and Lisa will take a look at your comment. I'm also going to look, I started the process, unfortunately I got sick this week, but I'm going to look at some of the other boards in the state and see how the ones especially that have workshop sessions, to see how they add that, what Lisa brought up with what Joyce brought up. Perhaps we can do something under new business.
Yeah.
So we could do it that way.
Mr. President, I
Yeah.
actually did some homework, and what they do is one of the ideas is that they actually add a line to the bottom of every consent agenda, allowing board members to speak either about the consent agenda item or any other topic. So they actually add that as inside the consent agenda, the last line, allowing board members the freedom and the opportunity to be able to address any other matter.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. Thanks, Joyce.
Can you just share, Joyce, can you send that to me, an example from that district?
Sure.
Thanks.
Don't we have to limit the comments to board business? So-
Well, again,
So
you
we
know-
can't just say board members comment on anything they want. It has to be related to board business.
Well, for
comment.
this district, it's operated where pretty much board members can say whatever they want at the end of the meeting. And that's kind of where the rub starts. So looking at what other people do and seeing how they do it, I can also, like, if I know who that is, I can speak to the superintendent, I can maybe speak to the board president, and we can find out their process. There might be some nuance to those processes that we can learn as well.
Because, what Scott said, and Joyce, based on what you're saying, it's what I always thought is if a board member has an idea for something going forward in something they would like to see in a presentation or something, I could see them bringing it up to Scott or Jen at a regular meeting and say, hey, can we, it's a big topic now in the state or the world or whatever. Can we maybe take a look at that? That would be something in a new business item, and it's how we bring that up.
Yeah.
That's how I'm, thinking about it.
All right, so that brings us to the action items. And that would be our more traditional side, which is the vote on the consent agenda. I'll leave that over to Mr. Nathanson.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve? Oh, we did that already.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Dr. Parker, second by Mr. Keener. Roll call, please, Mr. Pulowski.
Mr. Roger Kirschner. Yes. Mr. Ray Keener.
Yes.
Mrs. Joyce Mehta.
Yes.
Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Yes.
Dr. Stephen Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Smita Raj.
Yes.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Scoletti. Mr. Barry Nathanson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So the next item, we changed a little bit too. So this is board committee reports and liaison reports. So anyone to my left have either or. Mrs. Mehta.
Just very quickly, the South Brunswick Commission on Women, as I said in the last meeting, we are having our annual domestic violence walk. This is on October 24th, starts at the Senior Center at 1 p.m. Anybody, any high schoolers who need volunteer hours, they can go to our website, which is SBCW. If you just Google that, you'll see our Google site that comes up. There is a flyer on there, and you need to register online. Everybody who is attending the DV walk needs to register online. We will be granting 3 volunteer hours for attending, and for the volunteers, they then need to register again at the Senior Center. So I do hope that the community will come out and support us for this very, very important cause. Stand up, stand tall, and we need to raise awareness against domestic violence. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Mr. Scoletti.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a facilities meeting on Tuesday. Myself, David was there, Brian, Lisa, Smith, Scott, and Jill. And we also had a guest there also, Dr. Judy Langa. She was from Integrity Health. We looked at the layout for our health center that we're going to be having. We went over some of the blueprints on that. Basically, she showed us around what the rooms are like, the layout, how it's going to flow, and stuff like that. We had a couple questions for her on that, which was good. We really don't have a timeline right now when the blueprints and permits, all that other stuff is going to be coming out, so this is just the first little phase of that. We also, Scott and Jill talked a little bit about transportation, what's going on there. And then we also talked about our upcoming summer projects. I can't believe it's October, we're already talking about summer projects, but we have to because they have to go out to bid. So what we did was Brian and his crew, his team, as well as David, basically came up with all the projects that they want to do this summer, upcoming, as far as everything from roofs to HVAC, flooring, windows, a whole bunch of stuff. So what we did as a team, we looked over everything. David was running the numbers and stuff on everything, and then we are, our committee has approved it, all the work that they would like to have done, and we've asked to go to budget, to send it over to budget to make sure that all the numbers work out well, and then move on from there. So that's my report.
Thank you. Anybody on the right? Mrs. Rogers.
Okay. This is Curriculum Committee, and the committee members, myself, Joyce, Smitha, Barry was in attendance, Jen, and Scott. As well, we had a guest, Suzanne Luckborn, and that was on the September 22nd. Blair Eisman actually also presented, and she provided us with the summer personal development happenings that took place, and the board has access to that. If you, via the committee minutes, you will see a link. As well, Suzanne Luckborn joined us to share about the Start Strong assessments, which has already been notified to the public regarding the new testing program and what grades will be assessed in what areas, like language arts, algebra, geometry, et cetera. The New Jersey Department of Education has put together a resource for families, and that is located on the district assessment page if you have any questions. We also went through culturally responsive teaching. Jen reviewed a document that she shared with all of us on here on the board in the summer, and this will be used as a resource, and Jen will have it added to the website as well in her curriculum section. Jen also talked about the process for the consultant, which I'm not going to cover, but that was discussed as well. And finally, two other areas, field trip parameters. Jen had shared with us that there's going to be field trip guidelines that are in place this year, and this specifically has to do because of COVID. So there are specific guidelines that have to be met prior to approval for a field trip. And finally, the Career Academy, Jen shared the project roadmap, where we are today and where we are headed. And that is it. And our next meeting is scheduled on October 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to the right? Seeing none, close board comments and liaison report. The next is the second public comment, and that's for any topic, anyone interested in speaking. Seeing no hands, I'll close the public portion. So I get a motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Keener, second by Dr. Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, South Brunswick.